Hello again guys, welcome back to the channel. Quite a quick video for you today. The aim of today's video is to show you how to set up the MCDU. I'm sure most of you have flown an Airbus and Flight Simulator before, already know how to set up the MCDU. This video is just showing you how it's done in real life on the line, so that if you wish you can refine your procedures a little bit more within the sim. Thanks very much, hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so today we're going to go through a typical setup of the MCDU, particularly with regards to a shorter sector. So we come down to the MCDU. First we go to Data, Aircraft Status, we check the engine type and we check that the nav database is valid within date. Obviously it's well out of date here, but that's just a simulator issue. Then we come down to the idle and performance factors and we check that those agree with what we have on the flight plan. If not, we'd change those. Next we go to the init page. Normally we put in a company route which would auto-populate the whole flight plan for us, which just makes life a lot easier and saves a lot of time. However, we don't have one of those today, so we'll have to do it manually. So we're going from Edinburgh, Echo Golf Papa Hotel, to Gatwick, Echo Golf Kilo Kilo. And for the alternate we're going to use Luton, which is Echo Golf Golf Whiskey. Flight number today, easy 808. And for the IRSs, usually they would be aligned on the position based off the GPS data. If we didn't have that, then we would have the gate board would usually have the current position. And if it doesn't, then we'd normally have a chart telling us the current lat and long of the gate that we're on. If you don't have any of those, you can also use the Shift Z menu in Flight Simulator to get your current position. To change each one, you just click on the button beside it, and then you can use the up and down arrows to change the position. As we're in the sim today, we'll assume they are correct, and we'll click Align IRS. Cost index is usually given to you by the company on the flight plan. Today we're using cost index of 28, and the same for the cruise flight level, that will be on the flight plan. We use 350 and would usually be given the cruise temperature and the tropopause altitude, but today I don't have those, so we'll leave those at the aircraft calculated values. That's the init A page filled out. Next we go on to the flight plan. So today we are departing from Edinburgh. Departure runway 24, and we'll be using the Gossam 1 Charlie departure. You can insert that. And certainly on a short sector we'd put in the arrival as well, so Gatwick, arrival, ILS 26 left, be the Willow 3 Bravo arrival. Insert. Now as I say, because we didn't have a company route, we have to build up the flight plan ourselves. The easiest way to do that, you can put in each individual waypoint one by one, but it's much quicker if you click on the last waypoint you have on the departure, so in this case Gotham. Then we can go to airways, and then we can put in each airway and its terminating waypoint to fill in the flight plan. So the first airway will be Papa 600, and that will be to Fenwick. Next airway will be Uniform Lima 612. That will be to Dean's Cross, Delta Charlie Sierra. Then it will be Uniform November 864. To Subak. And then it'll be direct to Kepad, so there's no airway, so we can insert that. So Subak was the last waypoint, then it's direct Kepad, so we just have to put that in as a waypoint. And then there'll be another airway, so we'll click on Kepad, so we've got Subak, Kepad. It'll be the airway Lima 151. To Kidley, which is the first waypoint for the arrival, I believe. So normally we would check every waypoint carefully, going through the charts and the flight plan and checking on the ND. I won't do all of it today, just to save a little bit of time on the video. But we have Edinburgh 24, Gossam 1 Charlie, which takes us to Gossam, then the Papa 600 airway to Fenwick, then the Uniform Lima 612 to Dean's Cross, then a Uniform November 864 to Subak, then direct Kepad, then Lima 151 to Kidley, and then we're joining the Willow 3 Bravo for the ILS 26 left. So that all checks against the flight plan. If you're still fairly new to Flight Simulator and you don't know where to get accurate flight plans from, we can maybe discuss that in a later video. Once the flight plan page is filled out, we check the distance against the paper flight plan, so that as a gross error check we check what we put in the box is accurate, and then we go to the secondary flight plan, make that a copy of the active. Different guys tend to do different things here. Some like to keep it as a copy of the active, some like to put in a different departure runway in case we get a runway change. I like to put an arrival back to the departure airfield just in case we have any issue on the departure and we need to return quickly. So for example today we could put from waypoint Mavix, new destination, Echo Golf Papa Hotel, Edinburgh, and that will mean we go take the departure runway to Mavix and then come back to Edinburgh for the ILS runway 24. No need for a star or a via, as we'll obviously be coming back in a hurry. With that done, we can fill in the performance information for the arrival in the secondary, again just to save time if we need to later on. So for the QNH today is 1010, temperature 20 degrees and the wind is calm. The MDA for Edinburgh ILS24 is 300. Once the secondary is filled out, we come over to the RadNav page. Usually we're just checking what we have in the RadNav page. We don't tend to manually tune these days. So VOR1's Tango Lima Alpha, VOR2 Sierra Alpha Bravo. Looks good. Next, back up to the init page and we go to the init B. So we click init and then we go across to init B. Zero fuel weight CFG, we usually use a default value of 25 until we have our load sheet, so we'll leave that to 25 for now. And according to our plan today, the zero fuel weight is going to be 58.3, so we go / 58.3. Block fuel on the flight plan today is 5.8 tons. 5.8 tons, and we'll come back to this later. Performance, we don't fill this in yet. If we had any noise abatement or speed restrictions, we may fill in some of the climb page, but we don't today. And for the progress, I filled this in earlier, but usually this field will be blank. I like to put in the departure runway most of the time for the progress page. So for the initial setup of the MCDU, that's all we would do for now. Meanwhile, we'll be getting on with other stuff in the cockpit. And then once we have our load sheet and we've got the fuel on board, we would come back to setting up the MCDU. So once they finish refueling, which it looks like they have, we've got the 5.8 tons that we wanted and there's no refueling going on. And we've got the load sheet. We come back down to the MCDU, go back to the init B page. We'd have a Mach 0 fuel weight on the load sheet, which we will put in this field here. I don't have one of those today, but we'll assume for argument's sake that it is actually 25.0. And usually we would have had some sort of change to the zero fuel weight. For those who don't know, the zero fuel weight is basically the weight of everything on the aircraft, so the catering, the passengers, the baggage, etc. It's the weight of everything on the aircraft except the fuel. And so if we were to add the zero fuel weight to the fuel weight, we should get the takeoff weight, which looks about correct there. The only reason there's a slight discrepancy is that the takeoff weight is based on losing 200 kilos of fuel for the taxi. Anyway, I digress. The zero fuel weight usually would have changed to some degree, so we would update that, but today, for argument's sake, it didn't change. So we have a block fuel 5.8 tons, 5.8 tons. 5.8 tons is what we wanted on the flight plan. That gives us a takeoff weight of 63.9. 63.9 we'd check on the load sheet, and 63.9 plus the 200 we have currently for taxi. So the takeoff weight will be 63.9, but we currently have 200 kilos extra because we're going to burn that for the taxi. So we'd expect the gross weight currently to be 64.1. We'd come up to here and we'd check on there that we have 64.1. For some reason the Aerosoft Airbus doesn't populate this field, but we'd cross-check that, and we'd also cross-check that the takeoff performance data that we've calculated is based on 63.9. With that done, we then do our takeoff performance. Usually we'd calculate this with an app or a chart, but the Aerosoft Airbus does this automatically for us, and as it's quite difficult to show you how it's done outside of the sim, I'll just use the Aerosoft values today. So we're planning on a config 1 departure, and we will be using up 0.8. We wouldn't usually have a figure populated here, we'd get that based on our takeoff performance calculation. If we wanted to cross-check that that is correct, we can come down to the trim wheel. We can see that we have a CFG today of 25, and we come across, that is just below 1 up for the trim, so 0.8 does sound about right. Flex today, we're using a flex of 52 according to the Aerosoft Airbus. V1 135, VR 139, V2 141. Again, usually we'd calculate those ourselves, and then we'd cross-check on the PFD that we do indeed. We should have 135, and normally by now we'd have set up the FCU, that's my fault. Some random values. Yeah, so 135, 141, which checks. So basically that is the setup for the MCDU. After that we'd go into the flat retraction briefing and the before start checklist. That's all rather more abbreviated than it would happen in real life. You'd usually have about 20 minutes setting up the rest of the aircraft before you came down here, and obviously we'd cross-check everything a lot more carefully, particularly with regards to the flight plan and the weights. Also, one thing you don't tend to appreciate in the simulator, when we're trying to do all this in real life, there are a lot of different distractions coming at us from gate agents and engineers, refuelers, sometimes passengers as well. So the whole thing tends to take quite a bit longer, and the other pilot would also cross-check everything that we've put in there. So there you go guys, that's a typical setup of the MCDU in the pre-flight process. Hopefully you picked up a couple of things from watching it. If you do have any comments or questions, please leave them down in the comments section below. And if you found the video useful, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. That's all for now, thanks very much, and I'll see you again soon.